Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming. I'm here to introduce Lauren Singer. She is a graduate of NYU. She comes to us from the East Coast. And she was an environmental studies major in college, and a lot of her experiences really helped to inform sort of where she is today, living a zero-waste lifestyle. So I will let her tell you all about that. Please welcome Lauren Singer. Or do you want?
Oh, I can just, yeah. And then I use this to,
Yeah.
cool. Can everyone see here if I stand right here? Cool. So I always like to start out by just gauging who I'm talking to, and I'm wondering who here hasn't heard of living zero waste or was like dragged here by a friend. So everyone, see, nah. Cool. So who has heard of zero waste? You've heard of it. Who here thinks that living zero waste is possible? Who here thinks it's impossible? Cool. So, again, my name is Lauren Singer, and I'm here because I live a zero waste lifestyle, and I have for the past 3+ years now. And so, what zero waste means is actually different to all kinds of people. I was talking with my friend Colin and another woman on a panel the other day, and to some people living zero waste is an infrastructural thing, to some people it's a political thing, and to me living zero waste is a personal thing. And to me living zero waste means that I don't create any trash or any landfill trash. So I don't send anything to landfill, and again haven't for more than 3 years now, but I do recycle, but very minimally because I don't really buy anything that needs to be recycled anymore. And I do compost, which is what was one of the biggest forms of trash before I started doing that. So all of this kind of started when I was in college. Are you guys all undergrad? Anyone? Okay, cool. So I started everything out, I was an environmental studies major, but I didn't really do anything environmentally until I was about a junior in college when I saw a documentary called Gasland, which was about the impacts of hydrofracking on the environment. And I was obsessed with the anti-fracking movement, and I started protesting and lobbying and doing all of these things to raise awareness about fracking. And actually, if you look at this picture, you can like maybe spot me out in the middle, like doing some fist stuff. So that was my junior year. It was all dedicated towards anti-fracking. And my senior year of college was the last year that we had to kind of wrap up all of our environmental studies because, as you mentioned, I was an environmental studies major. And one of the classes that I was in, the environmental studies capstone course, was the culminating course that you have to take in order to graduate and, you know, inform people about sustainability. But there was a girl in this class that I had watched every single day for the entire semester, and she would bring this big plastic bag full of a plastic clamshell full of food and a plastic fork and knife and a plastic water bottle and a plastic bag of chips, and she would eat everything and then she would just throw it in the trash. And I would be like, oh my God, you're the worst person in the world, right? Because we were these environmental studies majors, and this girl was making so much trash and was really not even seemingly thinking about it. She would just eat and throw it away, even though NYU had a comprehensive recycling program, still just making all of this plastic trash, and it really annoyed me. And so one day after class, I went home to make dinner, and the same way I did every other night, but for some reason something was different, and I opened my fridge and I noticed that every single thing that I had in there was packaged in plastic. And I don't know, how many of you guys can relate with that? Yeah. And I was really mad at myself, and I was really sad, and I couldn't believe that I hadn't noticed that before, right? Because I was getting so mad at this girl for making so much plastic trash, and it turns out that I was making just as much plastic trash. I wasn't recycling everything, and I was just as bad, and I was a total hypocrite. And so I felt really awful, and I made a decision in that moment to just stop using plastic. I didn't know how I was gonna do it, but I was like, I'm done, can't. And especially because I'd been protesting the oil and gas industry for so long, and I was using one of their biggest byproducts, and so that didn't align with me. How could I be so vehemently opposed to an industry but still use one of their biggest byproducts? There was a misalignment. And so I decided to stop using plastic. But you guys basically all raised your hand, so if you can imagine, moving away from plastic is probably difficult, right? So what I realized when I started trying to do this was that it was pretty easy for me to find things like food package-free. I went to farmers markets, I went to natural food stores, co-ops, and I was able to buy everything I needed in bulk. But what I couldn't find were things in other stores, like pharmacies. I couldn't find plastic-free shampoo. I couldn't find plastic-free toothpaste. So what I realized was that I couldn't just buy my way out of using plastic. I had to learn how to do a bunch of things and start making these products myself. And so when I started doing research for these recipes, because obviously I didn't know how to make anything myself. I didn't know how to make toothpaste or deodorant or shampoo or anything. I don't know many people that do, and if you do, you're really cool. So when I started doing this research, I found this blog called The Zero Waste Home, started by a woman named Bea Johnson. Who's seen that blog before? Who hasn't seen that blog before? I like the more hands question, So Bea is awesome. She's this woman that lives in Mill Valley in California, and she has 2 kids and a husband and a dog, and the 5 of them live totally zero waste. And I had never heard of living zero waste before. I thought that for me, going plastic free, I was like, yes, I'm awesome. I'm doing this thing for the environment. Like, I hate plastic and the oil industry, so I'm gonna stop using plastic and I'm done, I'm good. But learning that I had the opportunity to take that one step further and not produce any trash at all, that was so inspiring to me and so enlightening to me, because again, I studied environmental science, and my lifelong goal is to just have a positive environmental impact on the earth and to leave it in a better place than it was when I entered it. And to me, living zero waste has been the best way to align that sentiment and those values with my day-to-day life. Otherwise, I was just living in a way that contributed to the depletion of Earth's resources and not actually doing anything to help it. And so I decided to follow in Bea's footsteps and go zero waste. So again, a lot of you raised your hands thinking that going zero waste is really difficult, and I'm sure you still think that. I haven't really explained the process yet. But it turned out that going zero waste was actually a lot easier than I thought it would be. One of the biggest things that I did, and something that I already started to do when I was going plastic free, was shop package free. So I learned how to buy all of my fruit and vegetables at the farmer's market, and you guys live in Washington, you have one of the most amazing places to get food from. I'm super jealous. You can harvest mushrooms like in your backyard. That's really cool. I can't do that in Brooklyn. And so I also learned how to do things like shop at the co-op and natural food store and bring my own bags to fill up with things like grains. And I stopped buying new clothing. So everything that I wear and everything that I own is secondhand. I don't purchase any new clothing anymore because there's enough clothing already in the waste stream, and so I feel the need to reuse what's already out there and then adequately dispose of it by doing things like textile recycling or mending things that are just a little bit ripped or a little bit broken instead of throwing them away. I learned how to do things like make my own products, so I finally learned how to make the toothpaste and the deodorant and the shampoo. And by doing those little things, over time, it turns out that I was able to reduce all of the trash that I was producing. And who still thinks this is hard? So when you hear zero waste, it seems really daunting and really impossible because it's a big umbrella term. It's like hearing the word climate change. No one really understands what that means because it's a huge term and it's not broken down for us. But when you actually look at living zero waste and you break it down into its pieces, it's just a lot of little one-time or baby changes that have a long-term positive impact. And when I started doing this, I did it for myself and not for anyone else. I did it because I wanted to live in alignment with my values. But I'm lazy, like super lazy. And I wouldn't have continued doing this if it was hard or impossible or frustrating. It just like doesn't match with my personality. And so I realized that actually living this lifestyle improved my life. And that's why I continued doing it. So the first benefit of living this lifestyle is that I actually save a lot of money. Just talking about secondhand clothing, I save so much money by doing just that. I mean, even that change alone has saved me, I'm sure, thousands of dollars over the course of the past 3 years. If you think about something as simple as a pair of jeans, you can go to a department store and buy a pair of jeans for like $200, which to me is like sickening and horrible, and I hate that and shouldn't be the case. Or I could go to Goodwill and get a totally good pair of jeans for $1, $5, $10. So even with that, that's like one of the first ways that I saved money. I also saved money by learning how to plan ahead. So before I started living this lifestyle, I was in college, and I didn't really plan, because as college students, we're kind of like always just doing the next thing and like scratching to get all these things done, and that's it. But when I actually slowed down and I started thinking about the things that I was purchasing, especially when it came to food, because when I was in college, I would go into my fridge and realize like, oh my God, it's 2 in the morning and I have nothing, and so I'd have to go to the corner store and buy crap packaged in plastic and eat ice cream for dinner because that was the only option I had. And so when I slowed down and started living zero waste, which also meant living package free, I learned how to make a shopping list. And when you have a shopping list, you go in with a plan. And so I wasn't just impulse buying when I went to the store. I wasn't looking at cookies and being like, hey, you cookies, you're coming home with me. It wasn't like that at all. It was like, I want salads for dinner every night, and I'm doing this week. And so just by making those purchasing decisions, I was able to save money because I wasn't spending money on things that I didn't need. Also saved a lot of money by making my own products. So toothpaste, for instance, I think is a really good example, because if you want to use natural toothpaste, a thing of Tom's I think is like $7. Can anyone confirm that? $7? $6, $7? Yeah, for me to make my own toothpaste, it's about 20 to 30 cents for the same amount of product, and there's no packaging, there's no shipping involved in bringing a product to a store. I don't have to walk to a store, so again, like perfect for lazy me. So I have all of the ingredients that I need to make these things in my house. So something like that saves me a ton of money. The second thing is I eat better. So again, I mentioned going to the store and going in with a plan, and because of that, I wasn't making, or I'm not making, impulse decisions. So I can't buy processed packaged junk anymore because I choose to shop package free, and lucky for me and for my body, that stuff doesn't come package free really. And if I do want to eat something that's sweet, I'll either make it myself, or I'll go to a place like a bakery that's not using preservatives or synthetic ingredients, or believe it or not, some foods actually have petrochemicals in them, so nothing artificial. So that's resulted in me feeling and being a lot healthier. So things like my weight have stabilized. I don't feel heavy and bloated after eating anymore, which is something that used to happen all of the time when I was just eating impulsively and eating sugary things. So eating a lot better, saving money, those things have resulted in me just feeling a lot better. And by feeling better, I've become so much happier and become liberated in the sense that for the first time I really am living the things that I want to see in the world. I'm not just talking about sustainability. I'm not just saying, climate change is the worst, like screw big business. I'm making changes every day in my life that affect, reversing the decisions that businesses have made. I'm saying no to plastic because I don't like what the oil and gas industry has done to the environment. I'm saying no to different kinds of packaged and processed foods because I don't like what those things do to the environment. And so I'm making decisions for the first time that not only impact my life, but also align with my values. So I'm sure you guys are still like, this is crap, this is hard, I'm not doing this. But if any of you are like, maybe, kinda, perhaps I could do it, I have steps that I took and that worked. So the first one that I like to suggest is actually looking at your trash, because how can we reduce the amount of trash that we're producing if we don't even know what we're throwing away, right? So for me, when I did this exercise, and again, I was in college, living in New York City, my 3 main sources of trash were organic food waste, so food scraps. I'm sure you guys can maybe relate to that. And so to eliminate that, I learned how to compost. And just by learning to compost, I removed about this much trash from my life each week, because that's about how much compost I throw away every single week, or compost each week. The second thing that I saw that I had was product packaging. So to remove that problem from my trash, I learned how to make my own products. And then the third thing was food packaging. And so to eliminate that, I learned how to shop package free. And just by making 3 changes, because I identified 3 sources of trash, I eliminated basically 90% of my garbage. Just 3 things, 3 simple things. The second thing that I like to suggest is picking at the low-hanging fruit. So these are the little one-time simple changes that you can make in your everyday life that will have a large-scale and long-term positive impact. So these are the really easy ones, the ones that are drilled into our head from childhood. Things like using a reusable bag instead of a paper or plastic bag, using a stainless steel water bottle instead of using plastic water bottles, bringing your own stainless steel straw, or saying no to straws altogether instead of using plastic straws, which are, side note, my least favorite thing in the entire world. Doing things like bringing your own reusable napkin to use as a bag if you want to buy something on the go. You can use it as a tissue. You can use it as, I don't know, anything that you can use it as toilet paper, I guess, if you wanted to. But like that'd be kind of gross, but you could. So little one-time things, large-scale impact. The third thing that I like to suggest is the actual DIY. So what I talked about, making your own products. I started out by making toothpaste. That was the first thing that I made, and realized that by just making one product with 3 ingredients, my toothpaste is baking soda, coconut oil, and essential oils, that I could essentially save money and have really clean feeling teeth. I've brushed with baking soda for years now. Went to the dentist like 2 weeks ago, and he's like, well, your teeth are so clean. And I was like, thanks, baking soda. And so it totally works. And then that kind of got me on the roll of making all of my own products. So now I have a 4-item beauty routine that I do every day. It's just toothpaste, deodorant, body and face lotion, and what's the other one? Soap, yeah, for everything. And that's it. And I make everything myself. So just by doing those 3 things, I was able to totally eliminate all of the trash that I make. And when I started doing this, again, I was in college, and I wanted to study environmental studies and then go into politics and make legislation to change the world, right? That's how I thought I could have the best impact on the planet. I wanted to go change laws, stop subsidies, do all of these big things. But at the same time, I still had my blog, Trash is for Tossers, which is how I kind of talk about all of the things that I do in my day-to-day life. And when I graduated, I had a politics job. So I was actually taking the steps to do things in politics that I wanted to do. I was sustainability manager at the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, which is the New York City agency that regulates all of New York's drinking water and wastewater. And it was a good job. I would be totally happy with it. If something didn't happen, I realized that I was getting a ton of emails from people about all different sorts of things, but one that came really frequently was like, hey, I really like your lifestyle, but I'm a busy person. I'm a student, I'm a mother, I'm a friend, I'm busy, I just don't have time. I want these products, but I don't want to make them myself. What do I do? Do you have any suggestions for products that I can buy that align with living zero waste or that are as pure as the ones that you can make yourself? And so I went out on this mission. I love research. And so I went to like all these different stores and started looking for beauty products and cleaning products that were as minimalistic and as clean as the ones that I was making every day. And I found some beauty products that aligned with that. I found beauty products that just had simple things like coconut oil and shea butter and baking soda, but the same was not true for cleaning products. I found out some pretty insane things about cleaning products, one of which is that there are over 85,000 industrial chemicals that are used, and most of them, actually a majority of them, aren't tested for safety before being released out into the market for use. And how they are tested is when someone gets sick from them, and then a bunch of people get sick from them, and then they're finally looked at and or probably not taken off of the market. That to me was really, really scary. And then the second thing, so like the cherry on top of it, was that cleaning product manufacturers aren't even legally required to tell you what they put inside of the products on the product packaging. And so we can go to the store and buy, you know, X, Y, and Z clean product brand and look at the ingredients and be totally happy with them, but then go home and use it and not even know what we're putting in our homes because it's not legally required to be completely transparent about it. And so when I learned that, I was like, that's not okay at all, for any reason, because I believe that we as consumers have a right to know what we're buying and what we're putting in our homes, and having a right to have products that are safe for our homes and our bodies and the environment. And so I took that moment to kind of assess my life and what I was doing, and I realized that I had been making these clean products for years and that they were super effective and really inexpensive. And I realized that I had an opportunity to actually start a company to make products for people that don't feel like they have time to make them themselves, but that are as safe as ones that they could make themselves, hopefully inspiring them to stop buying my products and to actually make them themselves. So I launched a company called The Simply Co., which I started on a Kickstarter. And my first product that I have is a laundry detergent. That's 3 ingredients. It's baking soda, washing soda, and organic vegan soap. And through that, I hope to grow and expand the business to show that you don't need toxic chemicals to clean. You don't have to accept the way that things are in society. So like one of the biggest things that I did was ask, like, why are there so many toxic chemicals in everything? And when did this start becoming okay? When did people decide that it was okay to poison people? When did businesses get the green light to start doing that? And so through this company, I hope to educate people on making more informed choices and hopefully be the bridge from buying products to making them yourself, because it's a lot cheaper than buying them. So through this whole thing, I realized something. When I was an environmental studies major, and actually, is anyone here environmental studies major? Cool. So for me, when I started out, I was learning all of these things, was inundated with information, and I got really afraid. And I was telling people, like my mom, for instance, like, Mom, you cannot drink conventional milk. Your boobs are gonna fall off. There's like pus in it. Like all this bad stuff is gonna happen. Don't do it. And she was like, you're crazy. Don't talk to me. And she totally blocked me out, even though I was saying something. Sorry, I get a little graphic. Just a little nice visual to leave with. And I was telling all these people these things that were totally valid, these scary things that were going on. But by telling them how to live, no one wanted to listen to me. But when I stopped trying to tell people how to live and I actually looked at myself and stopped trying to yell at people for what they were doing, and I started living zero waste and living my own values, I realized that the people around me started to change. My mom started drinking organic milk. My dad started recycling more. My friends started shopping at the farmer's market, not because I ever told them to, but because they saw how I was living, they aligned with it, and no one wants to do bad for the environment, right? No one really, I'm sure there are a few people, but no one really wants to make a ton of trash, make a huge environmental negative impact. And so just by living the way that I lived and putting it out there for people to see, I realized that I was able to show people how to live in a way that was sustainable and actually achieve my goal of a positive environmental impact without ever having to tell someone how to do something. And so I felt that the best way to ever achieve my goals was to just live my values. So for any of you that are looking or are upset with, things that are going on in the world, instead of trying to fight them or challenge them, I would suggest, for me, it worked to just look at myself and ask, how can I live my day-to-day life in a way that aligns with the world that I want to see? Thank you. And I will take questions, right? Cool. And I love weird questions and awkward questions. They make me feel comfortable and at home. And I don't live here, so I totally want to feel at home. Back? Yeah, you. Totally. Yeah. Do I buy secondhand underwear? Actually, I have bought secondhand underwear before from a store in Brooklyn that has like really beautiful, expensive secondhand underwear, and it didn't gross me out at all because I wear secondhand like everything. And I have secondhand bathing suit that's really awesome, but for my regular like day-to-day underwear, sorry for anyone who doesn't want to know about my underwear, I buy 100% organic underwear from an online shop that ships in only cardboard. So it's totally plastic free and totally recyclable, compostable. And it's 100% cotton, so I can just compost it when I'm done with it.
And I don't mean to commandeer the mic here, but they're recording this, so if people just raise their hands, they actually need to get you on the mic to record you.
Don't be afraid. Anyone on this side?
Oh, hello,
Oh.
Lauren.
Just kidding.
So I was looking at your blog, and a couple of things that I saw was that you advocated returning your plastic goods back into the Goodwill.
I'm sorry?
Returning your plastic goods back into the Goodwill. You know, taking those items.
Oh, donating things, yeah.
Yeah, and so I couldn't help but think that doesn't that then just give that problem to somebody else?
That's a good question. For me, one of the biggest reasons that I stopped using plastic, besides not aligning with fossil fuel industry, was that plastic harbors toxins, and for a totally health reason is one of the ones that I deemed why I needed to get rid of things. For most of my plastic products that were rigid plastics that could be recycled, I actually recycled them. So things like cutting boards, New York City has a really great recycling program, and so I just recycled those. But for things like spatulas that technically couldn't be recycled easily, actually now I could figure out how to recycle them properly, but at the time I couldn't, and there are people that would use them, and so I donated them. And also there are a lot of like food kitchens that would be happy to use things like that. That I recommend just reusing something as opposed to recycling it, just because it reduces the amount of energy expended to form it into something new. But yes, technically it is giving it to someone else, but if someone needs it, yeah. Oh, I'm not choosing the hands.
So I just wanted to know, like on your plane ride here, you know how they give out peanuts and stuff like that, and you carry a mason jar. Did you take one with you on the plane, or did you like break your? Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and I always say no to like any of the handouts, like not even, I mean, one, for the packaging obviously, but two, because it's junk food and I just don't eat processed, like synthetic-y food. But I always go prepared, so I bring my own plain snacks that I buy package free, so like dried fruit and nuts or like a sandwich or something like that. And I always have my mason jar, and people are always really down to fill up water in it, and I've like made flight attendant friends because of it. So.
And we now have these microphones up here, so if you want to ask her a question, just go ahead and come up and talk to the microphone. But before anybody gets up here, I'm going to ask you a question, Lauren.
Oh, yeah.
What was the most difficult thing for you? The most difficult that took maybe a while to change or was a challenge?
That's one that I get often, and really, like, I mentioned this when I was talking, I did this for myself and no one else. And when you do things because you want to improve your life, if something is challenging, it isn't really a bad challenging or a problem. So it was never anything that made me feel like I want to quit, I want to give up. I was like, darn, this lotion wasn't as good as it could be, like I'm going to try again. And I think that positive attitude is what helped me to actually achieve as much as I did with this lifestyle. And now it's just become a habit, and so I don't even realize that I live it anymore, because it just is what I do. It's like any habit, it becomes a habit. I think there are things that are difficult to find. So like certain recipes that were good were hard to find at first. Like finding a deodorant recipe was like climbing Everest. It was like impossible. But once I found one, it was amazing and awesome. And yeah, that was probably the hardest deodorant. Sure, it's a good question. My boyfriend has a son, and so I've gone through a lot of this. There are tons of really awesome websites that offer things for children that are totally package free and plastic free. So Life Without Plastic is one of my favorite resources, and they have like kids bowls and kids cups, and they're like wooden toys for children, and bento box, like stainless steel to-go containers, and there's reusable diapers, and there's organic cotton bibs, and there's, I mean, depending on the age of the child, but there's also secondhand clothing stores for children. There's eBay where you could buy tons of things secondhand, and so there are a lot of really awesome resources. It's just knowing where to look.
And you said the website was Life Without Plastic?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're really, it's like, beware, it's dangerous.
So one question that probably a couple of us have, because we're in an environmental science class, but we're kind of curious on how big of a carbon footprint you would leave on the Earth if you've ever done that.
How big of a footprint I would leave? I mean, from a waste perspective, I've prevented thousands of pounds of trash from going to landfill if I were to live like a typical American, or how I was living before I started going zero waste. But I've never actually calculated like how much carbon dioxide I'm expending on a daily basis. But from a trash perspective, which is where I focus, obviously I haven't sent anything to landfill, so zero impact trash-wise. I'm going to take turns.
Well, just a comment. I was going to get a lampshade, and I went to the store and I found one for $44. I thought, wait, that's too much. And so I went to Goodwill and I got one for $14.
Yeah.
Lamp, light, and everything. And
Totally.
gorgeous. So
Love Goodwill.
that's a good plan. What are you going to do with the stuff that you can't get rid of? I mean, I see myself just, always running into things where you just can't get rid of stuff. And the second thing is, do you run into Colin Beavan?
Actually, yeah, he's a good friend of mine. Love him. If anyone doesn't know him, he has a documentary called No Impact Man that's really great, and he's a super nice person, and he's coming out with a new book, so I'm going to plug that for him. You should check it out. He's really cool.
Yeah, that's a great movie, quite funny and informative too.
Yeah.
And he lives on the 9th floor, and so he walked up and down. But so the stuff that you can't get rid of, what do you plan to do with that? I mean, as I look at everybody here and I look at myself thinking, okay, I could try this, I could go so far, but I don't know how far I could go.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think like any action to reduce your impact is a positive thing. And so while you might not want to go zero waste, maybe there are things like we could all carry reusable bags instead of plastic bags. There's absolutely no reason that anyone here couldn't, to my knowledge. We could all use reusable water bottles. There are places that give them out for free, or you can get them at a place like Goodwill. But I found that for basically everything, there's a place that I could bring it, like, TerraCycle will even take cigarette butts and dirty diapers for recycling. And so really there's an option for everything. I try to buy, or I do buy 100% natural clothing, so all of that could be composted, but for things that are synthetic, there's always textile recycling. And then the only things that I haven't been able to, I guess I didn't even say this, all of the trash that I have produced, so I haven't sent anything to landfill, but there has been trash that I have produced that was unavoidable, fits inside of, wait for it, that jar. So that's all of the trash from the past 3 years, and everything inside of that is plastic. Things like plastic straws that I was given at bars even though I asked for no straw, produce stickers on produce before I realized that it was an option for me to shop at the farmer's market. And it's not that the stuff isn't recyclable, it is, there's just no current facility that will recycle this kind of plastic because there's no value for the secondhand product. So for anything that I do have a problem with recycling or reusing, I put inside of that jar and hold on to it, hoping that one day I'll be smarter and be able to find something to do with it. Yeah.
Oh, Lauren, you said live your values. My question is this. I'm married and I'm full-time working, a full-time student, and I'm at home to come home, do my homework, sleep, and repeat. And so my question is, how would I help my spouse make that decision in our house and kind of implement the change?
Again, I would never tell someone how to live. I would just try to embody those kinds of values and see maybe if your spouse was inspired by any of them. So, maybe do things together. Like, hey, maybe can we try shopping together at the farmer's market? That would be super fun and cool. Or let's go secondhand clothing shopping together. I feel with my friends that's worked really well, just being able to show them options that they didn't know were there, they began implementing a lot of the things that I did on their own, not because I told them to, but because they were cool and made sense to them. So if it's something that you maybe turned into like a relationship building exercise, then that could be a really great way.
Thank you.
I've asked like 800,000 questions already. So you were talking about buying like coconut oil and like oils and stuff like that. This is kind of a hybrid question. And I also saw your picture of you buying stuff in bulk in a mason jar. Whereas like when I try and buy stuff in bulk at Winco, they weigh it. And so it's going to be like 87 times more expensive if you weigh the mason jar. So number one, how do you find package-free oil, coconut oil, whatever? Second, how do you manage buying things in bulk by weight if you have such a heavy container that's reusable?
I'll answer your second question first. So I actually have an article up on my blog about how to shop package-free. It's like 3 down from the top one right now, maybe 4. And what happens is, like, say I bring this jar to a store. I first weigh the jar, which is called taking the tare or the pre-weight, and then I'll fill it up and I'll write the SKU of, or the item number of what I'm putting inside, and then once I get to the register, I'll tell them the weight of this jar, and then they'll subtract it from the total weight, and so I'm only paying for what's inside.
And so, well, I shop at places like Winco, but you're talking about, so I don't know if they'd take that on faith, but you're probably farmers markets, right?
They probably, no, like any grocery store has the capacity to do that, and if they don't for some reason, you could switch to organic cotton bags, which are really lightweight, so they won't add a ton of weight to what you're buying. Or even if you don't want to buy something new, you could use like a pillowcase or sew up a t-shirt or something like that. And then first question, so things like oils in bulk. There are stores that are awesome that have bulk oils. So like one of the places that I go to has bulk olive oil and soy sauce and honey and maple syrup and like all these crazy things. But if you don't have that, you could buy larger. So if you needed to buy coconut oil, you could buy like, you know, a 10-pound thing of coconut oil, have it for a really long time. And usually when you buy up in size, it'll come in more rigid plastic or a rigid material. Or you could buy in glass that's totally recyclable.
So I was curious, you clearly go to bars and like when you go to restaurants, what do you...
I look like I drink that much.
Well, I guess that was another question too. Like, what do you look for when you're purchasing liquor? Like, do you like avoid, like, where do you buy like wholesale liquor? That's one thing.
Yeah.
And also, when you're at a restaurant, what do you look for to make sure that they're using sustainable practices?
Really good questions. If you go to places like wine stores, like for instance in Brooklyn, there are like wine shops that make their own wine, and you can go and refill bottles. The same with a lot of places that sell beer. They sell growlers, and so you can refill them. Luckily, most alcohol comes in glass, so it's totally recyclable. But if I go to a bar, I'll aim towards buying things that are on tap or on draft, so like beer that doesn't come in a bottle, for instance. But yeah, most alcohol comes in glass or aluminum, so it's not really hard to recycle.
But for food stuff, are you ever just like...
For what?
Like food-wise at a restaurant, if you're ordering something?
Oh yeah, restaurants. So I don't eat out that often, but when I do, I only go to restaurants that are in alignment with kind of what I care about. So I wouldn't go to like McDonald's, for instance. I choose restaurants that have a strong sustainable ethos, that have local food, that support farmers. And usually what happens when you go to places like that is that they will compost and they'll have higher, you know, sustainability practices. But there are places that have things like paper napkins or straws, so I'll just be really insistent on asking for my drinks without a straw when I order them, and if there is a paper napkin, I'll ask if they have a reusable napkin, or I'll take the paper napkin home with me and compost it.
Cool, thank you.
Do you pay attention to all your petroleum usage? So when you go to the farmer's market and you purchase your goods, do you make sure that it's organic grown, no pesticides, stuff like that?
Totally.
When you travel, you make sure that you're I mean, do you plan your trips and stuff like that? Obviously, you had to fly from East Coast to West Coast.
Totally.
So.
So living in New York, luckily I can walk everywhere. It seems like you guys can kind of walk everywhere too, which is pretty cool. Oh, no, lying. But in New York I can walk everywhere, so I really don't use, I hardly use fossil fuels, and especially in my own house, I basically eat raw just because cooking, I just prefer salads and stuff. I'm getting fresh vegetables from the farmer's market, and I do eat all organic from the farmer's market. But things like flying, there are offsets. I have mixed views on offsetting, but unfortunately I can't control the airline industry, and so there are steps that are being taken, like there are planes running off of partial biofuels that I just saw, which is pretty awesome. But for right now, like the only option really is to offset.
Well, last year I started composting, and I have a roommate who has been composting alongside with me after I encouraged her. Well, I would like to continue this good trend and reduce all of my waste as well, but I am not sure how to encourage my roommate to be supportive of me in my endeavors, and maybe somehow encourage her to also do a lot of less waste as well as I am. So how could I possibly build a good relationship with my roommate so we can encourage each other to do zero waste?
I think it goes back to where are you, spouse, person? Yeah, to the question that you asked. Just like involving each other in those things. So my ex-boyfriend, we were together when I first started doing all of this, and he was really into some things and I was really into other things. So he was really into making products, and so we started making products together and had a lot of fun doing that, and that kind of inspired us to try other things. And you know, for instance with you, like if you and your roommate wanted to hang out, maybe like, I don't know how old you are, like drink a beer and make your own products, like it's just a fun like friendship building exercise. And I think like if you do things and you're like, yeah, I totally got a discount on my coffee because I'm using reusable coffee cups, that's like inspiring enough. And just by you living that way, she might be inspired if she already does things like compost.
All right, so I'm assuming since you eat so clean and live so clean, you probably don't get sick very often, but when the time ever comes that you need to take like a medication or something like that, how do you kind of view using medication and whatnot?
So that's true. When I started eating better, like I just didn't get sick. And if I did get sick, it would be for like 1 day or 2 days, which was like amazing because I used to get sick all the time when I wasn't living this lifestyle. And it's probably like a lifestyle and stress and just food thing, but whatever it is, I feel a lot better now. But with medications, if I do like have a stomach ache or a headache, I'll try like any natural method I can. There's a book called Healing with Whole Foods. Has anyone heard of that book? It's an amazing book, and it has like every possible ailment and like natural methods to heal it. So I'll try natural first. If there's something that really demands that you need medicine, obviously your health is important and you should do what you have to do, but you can recycle things like tubes from the pharmacy or bring them back. I got poison ivy a couple of years ago, and I'm like really, really, really allergic to it. And so I tried natural methods to heal it, and it didn't work, and I was like exploding on my leg with poison ivy, and I like wanted to die. It was horrible. And I had to get steroids, and it came in a metal tube, so luckily I could recycle it, but it was just one of those instances where like I had to make a choice, and I did.
So just curious, I'm gonna give you the naughty question. What do you do for your birth control?
I do not take birth control. Even before living this lifestyle, I wasn't into like taking pills or regulating. My friend started doing this thing where she takes her body temperature. She bought this thermometer. It was like $300, and it tells you when you're fertile, and just based on your temperature, if it changes by like 0.1 degree, it can tell you whether or not you can have intercourse. Sorry, people. And so obviously I always recommend like people using protection if they're going to sleep with someone. You know, getting an unwanted STD or having an unwanted pregnancy obviously isn't sustainable. And I've never gotten that reaction before. But I think everyone's different, and I say, always protect yourself first, but do what works for you in your relationship. Yeah.
Get up and try to maybe bring this thing up. Yeah, whatever. I'm working at a locally owned bar restaurant, and I have constant contact with the owners, and they're really great people. But one of the things I've noticed constantly is we have a lot of unnecessary waste, and I constantly try to talk to them about alternative measures we could take. But from a company's standpoint, what are some things that maybe you know about that I could recommend to them to alter the way that they, in terms of cleaning products or just packaging, whatever?
Totally. You guys can compost here, right? So a big one is obviously having compostable takeaway containers. My boyfriend is a cook, and so he actually tries to do just that, make restaurants more sustainable, and restaurants inherently are super unsustainable and produce a lot of trash, but there are little things that can happen. So doing things like using reusable napkins, obviously, not having straws, doing things like having compostable takeout containers, not having plastic or finding alternatives to plastic wraps, so not using deli containers and using steel containers, little changes that they're more expensive, but in the long run they're cheaper.
So clearly you're a vegan, right?
I am not a vegan.
You're not a vegan. Do you eat meat?
Sometimes.
You do? Okay, so here's a great question for you. So when you go to a store to buy meat, how about do you package that up without the waste?
Totally. So I don't buy meat at stores. If I do, it's from someone who I know killed it. But in a store, you can buy meat from a deli counter the same way that you would bringing your own container. You can bring a container and say, can you just take the pre-weight and then put the meat in? You can do the same with cheese or fish. And then they'll take the weight of the container, you put it in the weigh, and they'll just charge you for what's inside. You can also, if they say no to that for some reason, you could either try a different person that works there, because some people are different about doing things like that, or you can just have them wrap it in paper and then compost it.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, thanks for answering all these questions.
Yeah, of course, it's fun.
I want to ask about Backlash. I mean the question in a million ways. The simplest one is I have some students who are trying to do simple things like using reusable bags, and they're getting essentially microaggressed by the people who are checking them out. And so I think it might be helpful for some of them to hear your journey of, developing a backbone, because in a sense you're in a minority, and it seems like if you're an environmentally minded person and you're expressing it through your life choices, it seems like we get kind of beaten down a little bit.
Totally.
So I'm just curious what your journey has been like there.
I think, number one, you're totally right. The way that I live is a totally minority way, and the way that I do things is really strange to people sometimes because they've never seen it done, or it's new, or it's alien. And sometimes I get looks from people, and I'm just this is amazing. This is so cool, because when someone gives me a look when I'm doing something that they've never seen before, it means I'm showing them something that they've never seen before. And so in a way, I'm educating them. And I sometimes will say hey, can you put this in my reusable cup, because I don't like to use disposables and make a ton of landfill trash. And it's just a tiny little blurb, but it helps to kind of get an internal dialogue going and explain why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. And it's really just a way to educate people. And that happens a lot at coffee shops. People will be well, I've never seen anyone use a mason jar before. And they're that's so cool, it makes so much sense, I'm gonna start doing that. Or I'll get a discount on my coffee. And it's just kind of I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. And if that's the place that you're coming from, living a lower impact lifestyle, someone criticizing you shouldn't matter, because you're doing it for yourself.
Hi Lauren, from your PPT I have seen you have been several times to Whole Food Market, which is one of my favorite market to buy some grocery. But for a college student it seems a little bit too expensive, and do you have any recommendation for this?
For produce, Sometimes it can be less expensive, but farmers markets, I find, it also depends on what you're buying, and like the most expensive food is food that's wasted and doesn't get eaten. So for me, like I found that when I started really planning, I was spending a lot less on groceries because I didn't need as much as I thought I did. But really farmers markets I find are a lot less expensive than going to a chain grocery store.
Oh, that's cool. And I'm studying environmental sciences, and I did a little bit research about Whole Food Market. Sorry about that. I don't want to say something biased, but I have seen a lot of market. They are saying like we are organic, but they are selling same product for higher price, and it seems ridiculous to me.
So that's exactly, like things like that is exactly why I don't really shop at large chain stores often. You know, sometimes if you're traveling, it's like the only option that you have. But I really believe in community and knowing the people that you buy from like the food to where I'm buying ingredients from, like especially for my business. And when I shop at the farmer's market, I know the farmers that are growing my food and how they're doing it. And so I know that the price that they're charging is justified because it's organic and they're driving all the way from upstate New York to bring it. And so I just feel like buying directly from the person that grows your food is the best option.
Thank you so much.
So given the public nature of your project, you have to respond to objections, I'm sure, at a pretty regular basis. Are there any objections that you run across consistently that you have trouble responding to?
Kind of. I think I get asked if I'm vegan a lot. That's always one that, actually I don't get asked if I'm vegan a lot. I get told that I need to be vegan, and that's insanely frustrating to me because I would never tell anyone what to do or how to live, and trying to push an ideal on me will never work. I think just by living a lifestyle and maybe sharing with someone why you do what you do, but not telling someone why they should do something is the most effective way to do it. For me, like I have my own reasons for choosing to eat the way that I do that are very based in science and research. So for me, just being told to do something is always the hardest for me because I'm very conscious of all the decisions that I make. But yeah, anyone telling me how to live is always super frustrating because I would never tell anyone how to live.
Gotcha, so you can kind of disarm them with an attitude of...
Yeah.
I have a question. So as a teacher, I sit in the classroom and I try to teach environmental studies and science to students, and then I go to a faculty office to pick up my mail, and then I find all of the trash that could actually be recycled in the trash can in the faculty offices, and then I go to faculty functions or school functions, and it's all disposable things and stuff along those lines. So how do you must have given talks at lots of places like this, so or being at NYU, how did you without telling people what to do, how do you get the message that, hey, here's a different option for you?
I think just by talking about it. Like, it's really easy, kind of like with the girl that used to piss me off in college about like bringing trash. You know, I shamefully did never approach her about what she was doing and talk about, that problem. I just kind of took it upon myself to change the way that I lived. But I think like sitting down with your peers and having a conversation, be like, hey, we're throwing out a lot of stuff. Can just like anyone feel that maybe we could be recycling a bit more, or like try to approach it from a really positive place, or say like, hey, let's have like a challenge. Maybe we can, recycle more than have trash and weigh it every week or whatever, and try to make it into like a positive thing. But they're all habits. Like some people just don't have a habit of recycling or don't have a habit of being conscious about what they're throwing away. And it's just kind of like creating a dialogue around that and then helping people to change their habits if they want to.
Hi, thanks for coming and talking with us. I have to just, on a personal note, say that it's been a lot of fun after I learned about your lifestyle to take the mason jar to the store and buy things in bulk, which you can do at the Tacoma Food Co-op. For the woman who asked, you can get your olive oil there and your soy sauce. So we do have that resource. But my question is, you mentioned that you wanted to go into politics or do something with legislature because you wanted to make an impact there. But here you have a blog and you're giving talks and you're also living your zero waste lifestyle. So do you feel that, and I don't know if this is the right question, but do you
do you feel that one makes a bigger impact than the other, or are they different? Do they complement each other in some way?
Yeah, I think like any space trying to make a positive impact is positive. For me and what my strengths are, I didn't think being in politics and being in an office all day was the right place for me. I was also inspired by a professor of mine that I had in college at NYU. His name is Jeffrey Hollander, and he started a company called Seventh Generation. Does anyone know that company? And he left that company and started a new company called Sustain that makes sustainable condoms. And he informed us about the bad practices of the rubber industry. Obviously, rubber makes latex, which makes condoms. And he said that he wanted to invest in fair trade rubber and help to grow that industry. And just by starting a new company, he was going to inspire other people to change the whole face of an industry. And that was amazing to me. And that was kind of one of the motivating factors that made me feel that business was the right place for me, that by creating a product, you didn't have to do something bad. You could actually do a lot of good on a large scale platform. And so I think it's all about just doing what's, or finding your strength and running with it.
Hey, Lauren, looks like I'm going to be the last question before we end tonight.
Yeah.
But so my question is, so you live a zero waste lifestyle for yourself with the mason jar as proof of that. But do you ever really think, I posed the question to you that you posed to us, which is it truly possible with all the infrastructure that we have to truly live a zero waste lifestyle? And I guess I ask this because I'm wondering if the whole notion of zero waste is kind of illusory given our structures in society. Somehow upstream when we go out to eat, or even the olive oil or the coconut oil that comes to the store has to come in some sort of packaging. How do you feel about that?
It's a really good question. So for me, like I explained before, I focus on just an individual trash impact, so my personal trash output, which I think is and has been possible to have at zero. But you know, there's a lot of change that has to happen in business and in all different kinds of industry to actually be truly, you know, waste free. And I think it's just, it's so multifaceted. I mean, you need to have the adequate facilities to recycle things in industrial composting or even small scale composting. And then you have to ask the question of like, should there even be these large businesses making all of this trash? And a big thing that I focus on is that like businesses aren't even held responsible for the trash or the products that they're creating. So they can make anything and put it onto the market and not have to pay for recycling infrastructure. And that burden falls on the taxpayers and on governments, which is why taxes are so high and why we're always complaining. But we're buying these products from companies that don't have any responsibility and can just like wipe their hands clean. So again, like another huge problem. But I mean, there was a time when people weren't really creating trash because things were made from natural materials. And so if there weren't synthetics, technically everything could be composted and returned back into the earth. So it is possible. It's just we have to revert back to a lifestyle where synthetic products weren't the norm.
I agree. Actually, I lied. I have just one more quick question. And that is, why do you, can you give us the elevator speech of why you hate plastic so much?
Oh my God. I mean, do you have time? No. So the biggest reasons that I don't like plastic are, one, obviously it takes forever to biodegrade, and I have a friend who's a scientist that actually helps to make plastic. And he says that even if it's a bioplastic, it'll never truly biodegrade. And so that's one thing. Also, plastic attracts toxins. So when it gets into the ocean, which inevitably most plastic does, it can be up to 1 million times more toxic than the water around it. And then what happens with plastic is because of the acidity of the ocean and sunlight, it breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, and then fish and marine life mistake that for food, and the toxins in that plastic does something called bioaccumulates, which means the amount of toxins in a species that's eating it increases as you move up the food chain. And so the fish that are getting to us are totally contaminated with toxins that they've received in their bodies because of plastic that we've improperly disposed of or irresponsibly disposed of. So just for its pure impact on nature, that's one of the reasons. But like getting into the whole extraction process, like the extraction of fossil fuels for plastic is totally environmentally detrimental. It uses a ton of fuel to make fuel, a ton of water, even things like hydrofracking to make gas. Tons of toxic chemicals, millions of gallons of water and sand, has tainted water, drinking water for people, has absolutely ruined lives, has even in some cases been said to start or bring earthquakes in certain areas. And so, the oil and gas industry, besides even the plastic product, is just a totally unsustainable industry. So that's the short of it.
Sounds like you're kind of on the fence. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Can we give her a round of applause and thank her?
Thank you. And I can totally stand here if anyone else has questions. I can stand. Yeah. Cool. Thanks. Thank you so much.